Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Seventh Man Podcast. I'm Will Beverina. I'm the chief editor of Dimer2K.com.
I am Josiah Cohen. I am the managing editor of Dimer2K.com.
I'm Len. I am the senior analyst of Dimer2K.com.
We switched up the intro just because the last few were getting very repetitive of everyone writes for Dimer. Anyway, we're back for episode 21. You can check out all of our previous episodes on the YouTube channel. Just search Seventh Man Podcast. And we have most of the episodes on iTunes, Podbean, and Spotify as well. Last time, we talked about the turn and the trades that went down, which seems like forever ago because we haven't been around the past couple weeks, mostly due to me and work stuff getting in the way. So apologies for that. We're here now, though, to discuss some good old NBA 2K League. We've got a variety of topics to discuss today, as a lot has been going on in our podcasting absence. The past week was a very eventful one. Lots of hope, high-profile matchups, and interesting results, to say the least. At the end of it all, the standings are pretty wild right now. Let's start at the top, guys. Mavs Gaming and Blazer 5 Gaming both currently sit at 10-1 on the regular season. Mavs Gaming just coming off of a 10-game win streak, and Blazer 5 on a current 10-game win streak of their own. Let's assume that the battle for the best team in the league is between these two teams. Which of these is the best team, Josiah?
Blazer 5 Gaming.
Oh, just like that.
Did you expect me to say otherwise?
No,
you didn't.
But...
No, you didn't. Because no doubt our group chat has given you fair warning of what I think. I'm going with Blazer 5, and the Mavs are a phenomenal team. There, I said it. But Blazer 5, really, really good, and I will take Blazer 5. Just dual MVP candidates. The leading MVP candidate this year as well. Lavish has come on really, really strong. They only are 10-1 because they absolutely choked away their Week 1 game against the Bucks. They do a lot, and they've played some tough teams. They've played some easy teams, as have the Mavs. But give me Mama and Walnut just absolutely rampaging through the league.
Len, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to agree. I think it's, I think it'll be that it's a little closer. I think the Mavs have really gotten a lot better in the last, last couple weeks. But, I mean, even when you look at point differential, they have a double-digit point differential. I think they're the only team in the league with that. And not to mention, they're not playing easy teams either. They beat Warriors Gaming by double digits. They beat Kingsguard by double digits. They beat Pacers Gaming by double digits. They're really showcasing in these wins as well. So I mean, I have to say Blazer 5 as well. But I do want to say that Mavs Gaming is progressively getting better.
Yeah, for me, this comes down to the fact that I think Blazer 5 Gaming has it's tough now because well, maybe not. I want to say Blazer 5 has the two best players among these teams. Obviously, Mama and Walnut. Mama, I don't think it's up for debate. He's been the best 2K player in the world for almost this entire season now, right? I mean, he's just been on an absolute tear. No one can stop him. Walnut, his production hasn't been quite at Season 1 levels, but I mean, you can't count Walnut out for a good game at any point. And PP Ballin has been playing very well, living up to his 5th overall status. But with Blazer 5, especially with the way they've been playing lately, just this week alone, Len mentioned they beat the Pacers by double digits. They beat the Kings by double digits. They've beaten the 76ers. And the Mavs, we kept saying the Mavs needed to prove themselves. Well, maybe not prove themselves, but show us that they can beat the best teams in the league. And to their credit, they've been doing that. They very handily beat the Kings by almost 30 points. They beat the Bucks a little bit back, and lost a kind of close game to the 76ers. So I just think if you want to look at the two rosters, I think Blazer 5 has the two best players, and that's kind of what it comes down to for me.
Well, Blazer 5 is top heavy. The Mavs have some really good depth.
Yeah.
And the Mavs, honestly, Grant Monster hasn't played all year, but I thought that was a very good pick for them in the fourth round. Mo has turned out to be a really, really good find at 14. And as I said, Pete has been absolutely terrific. Rux has played well. Sherm might be one of the most underrated locks in the entire league. So they're really deep 1 through 5, 1 through 6 if you want to extend it to the bench as well. But Blazer 5 is still very good as well. But I think just Blazer 5 is so very reliant on their two best players. If those guys simultaneously don't have good games, you probably look at a Blazer 5 loss. Whereas for the Mavs, there are a lot of guys who can step up and be carrying the load in any individual win.
Well, I mostly agree with that, but let's not forget the Blazer 5 played Jomar this week and still beat two very good teams. So they have some depth of their own. And Lavish, he was a guy, he was small forward last year, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. And he's played very well at that lockdown position. He had some shaky games, I think, maybe in the tip-off and against the Bucks, but he's really come along as a lockdown defender. So the Blazer 5 is top heavy, but that's just more of a testament to how good Mama and Walnut are. But this team is pretty sound in spots 3 through 6.
Yeah, I agree, because I don't think you win 10 straight games with just two players. I get what Josiah is saying too, but yeah, like to add to Will's point, I think even David and when Jomar, they both stepped in at the rim sharp position. As soon as they implemented that into the lineup to guard the pick and roll with Lavish, I feel like their defense has been really, if not the best, one of the best defenses in the league. So I think everyone on their team is really playing their role. I don't think they have as big a names as, like, say, a Sherm is for Mavs Gaming or Pete is for Mavs Gaming. And rightfully so. I even to say, I think Pete is, at the top of the Rookie of the Year ladder. I think Sherm is making a really good case for Defensive Player of the Year so far. But yeah, I do think that we do need to give a little bit more credit to the Blazer 5 complete roster as well.
Yeah, I think depth is probably not as much as the word I was intending as top heavy, but
it's more like a team effort for the Mavs,
right? That's
where
what it feels
multiple people can beat you.
But as you said, that is really just a testament to how phenomenal and how much of an impact Mama and Walnut have on each and every game.
For sure, I agree with that.
I guess we're all in agreement there then. We don't hate the Mavs as much as they'll probably think that after listening to this. I just want to say I had the Mavs as the second seed in my season preview, so I definitely don't hate the Mavs, and I do very much believe in their talent. But let's anything else to say on that topic?
No, not if you finish patting yourself on the back. I think we can move on here.
Just wanted to let the listeners know that I'm on top of these things. Let's move on. Let's go to the middle of the standings, where it is an absolute cluster. Spots 7 through 16 in the standings right now are separated by a single game. If you're in any one of those spots, your record is somewhere between 4-4 and 5-5. Now, let's make a lot of assumptions here.
That's
for
5-4.
the sake.
Sorry, that's
sorry?
5-4, not 4-4.
Oh yeah, you're right. There is no. There are 4-4 teams in there.
But your record is not between 4-4 and 4-5. It's
like
I said 4-4 and 5-5.
Yeah, but 5-4. Like the Nets are 5-4.
Yeah, 5-4 is at the top.
Well, I mean, that's 5-4 is between 4-4 and 5-4, or 5-5, isn't it?
No, it's not. No, it's above it. That's why they're above them in the standings.
I mean, like in the loss, like in the
No,
loss column
look
4
at
is
the win
between.
percentages.
All right, whatever.
Some of us are just trying to
The
keep
people know
our
what I mean.
listeners.
The
No,
people
they
know what
don't.
I mean.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
They really have no idea.
Yeah, you get
Absolutely
it.
no
Your
idea.
record is either 4-4, 4-5, 5-4, or 5-5. If you're
It's the
in
most complicated way of phrasing
7 through 16, that's what I meant. Okay, that's what I meant. If you think about it, you'll understand what I meant. Anyway, they're all separated by a game. Okay, now let's make a lot of assumptions here for the sake of this podcast that there are 2 playoff spots up for grabs. Let's just say that the top 6, the teams in those top 6, the top 6 of the standings right now, they've done enough to secure a playoff spot. Obviously not true in reality, but bear with us. Among those final 2 spots, Josiah, which of these cluster of teams is most likely to take them?
Oh boy. Yikes.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
It's a tough one. It is a very tough one. I mean, you got to go with the 76ers. They've looked a bit shaky over the last few weeks, but they were the first team to beat the Mavs in the regular season. They're still the 76ers. They still have everyone they have. CDS went off for a massive game. If he does more of that on a more consistent basis, then they're going to be even better than they have been already. So you have to look at the 76ers as being up there. But then what if the Nets beat them this week? If the Nets add the 76ers to their win tally and they go up to 6-4, then the Nets are looking really, really strong. The Magic have been phenomenal the past few weeks. They're getting production out of every single player on their roster. Manny just stepped into a secondary ball handler role and has been excellent. Toxic joined the team, really, really good. So those are the teams you have to look at. There are some teams probably easier to count out than others. There are some teams whose path is sort of really clear. The Hawks, for example, they need to get out early. They need to get shots, scoring 25 a game. But I think you have to look at the 76ers and the Magic at this moment, but obviously that will change after Week 8 and after the results therein.
Len, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, after hearing what Josiah said, I think it's pretty clear that every team in this middle of the pack has pretty much shown inconsistency throughout the year. Like each of these teams, they've had a few weeks where they've looked like potentially like a top 5 team, or at least a top 10 team, and then they've had weeks where they've looked like a bottom 5 team. I mean, you could really make a case for anybody to sneak into those last 2 spots, as we saw last year, even where the Magic, who that didn't really have a talented roster or anything, really had a chance there at the end, had the Knicks not won the ticket to make the playoffs last year. So, it's just showing how much parity is actually in this league. I could really make a case for any of them. I think when I look at the rosters, obviously the first ones that stick out to me are 76ers, Celtics crossover, obviously because they have, the big name point guard who, could take over a game. But lately, I mean, it's weird. Like with 76ers, like their identity has totally been skewed the last couple weeks, and it's just a weird thing to see. Like they can't really find where they want people to be. Radiant hasn't really been the Radiant we've been accustomed to seeing early on in the season. I feel like he's been struggling a little bit more since they've implemented the glass cleaner into the lineup. But I also feel like that they had to integrate the glass cleaner into the lineup because of what weaknesses were exploited when they played Blazer 5. So they don't want to go down that road again. So I think that they're just really going through kind of an identity crisis in a sense. Whereas like a team like Celtics crossover, I think that they kind of created an identity crisis that wasn't necessarily needed, where they had weeks where they were playing perfusion at the center position and things like that. So I think it's just really whichever teams can really find their niche and really find some consistency. We even have some teams like Hawks Talon where, they look really good against a Warriors team, and then they come back the next game. I believe it was against Cavs Legion, and and then they lose that game. So, and I think it's just a kind of push and pull where they were able to, really exploit the Warriors style and really find one-on-one matchups against Warriors Gaming, where they kind of did a, hey, live and die by the twos with shots kind of thing. Whereas Cavs said, hey, we're not watching that. We're going to show a lot more movement on the defensive end. And so, yeah, I mean, it just depends, like, which teams can really make the adjustments that need to be made down the line, which teams can really show the consistency down the line. I could go down each team and really give, like, a, in-depth breakdown of what I've seen. But, I mean, at this point, it's really hard to say who exactly, with the parity we've seen in this league, who exactly will prevail here at the end.
Yeah, 76ers is going to be a popular pick among basically everyone to be one of these teams that's going to get a playoff spot. I usually like to play devil's advocate on this podcast, but looking at the rest of the 76ers schedule, they play like the Pacers, and then like they play like the Nets and the Hawks, I think, and then like the Grizz. But then they also play like the Wizards and the Pistons. So their remaining schedule isn't the toughest. And that's without looking at anyone else's schedule. And I'd like to think that they can handle that kind of schedule. Because their losses, I can't remember every single one of them, all four of them, but their losses have been to pretty good teams. Like they've lost to Blazer 5, they lost to Kingsguard. Who else? They lost to someone else just this week. Who was it?
Well, they lost to the Warriors last week.
Right, and they lost to the Magic.
Magic this week. Yeah.
So they've lost to pretty good teams. And it's the 76ers, so you're like, everyone thought they were going to be one of the best teams in the league. So the expectations are higher. And you're probably saying, they should beat those teams, right? If they are truly one of the best teams in the league, then they should be able to beat all those teams and not be 5-4. But looking at their remaining schedule, it's kind of it's mostly teams that are kind of in this cluster, and I think that's they can handle that. Hopefully, for them, I think they can handle that. So I think 76ers is one of those picks is definitely. I'd probably lock that in. As for the second spot, I have absolutely no idea. I like the Magic look good. You could make a case for the Jazz or the Hawks or the Bucks or maybe the Celtics have finally got it together and they can do it. But I mean, I honestly just have no idea. I think I'm not sure if you can even eliminate any of these from contention. Maybe the Grizz. I don't know. There's a part of me that just doesn't see the Grizz making a run, but
would you be shocked?
Outside of that,
would you be shocked if any of these?
No, I wouldn't. No, because they've been playing better. Vandy's been playing a lot better, kind of living up to his 7th overall pick standing. So it's who knows at this point. And this hypothetical is just taking into account that the top 6 are secure when that is not the case at all.
Not at all the case. Not
at all. So it's even more complicated than this hypothetical, right? So I don't know, man. I don't know. It's gonna go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying, to further complicate matters, the ticket.
The ticket, yeah.
The 76ers might just go out there and win the ticket, as could a whole variety. What if It's not going to happen, I think. But what if the Knicks just went out and won it again?
There's
That
no
would
way.
just
There's no
right.
way.
There's no way,
Right?
but that would just throw everything further into chaos. Like, because then that's a whole team from the top 16 not making the playoffs.
I mean,
Right.
yeah, and like it's not, it's not to say we haven't seen a team make a run this year. Like what we saw with T Wolves at the turn tournament. If it, it seems like it's becoming a major issue late game. Allowing Cavs Legion to come back, and then they kind of blew it in the fourth quarter against Jazz Gaming in the turn tournament. But had they knew how to close out games, we could be talking about a team like T Wolves Gaming being a tournament team as well. So. Yeah, I mean, it's not totally out of. I don't think it's totally out of the realm to believe that this year a team like out of the picture could win the ticket tournament. But I think it's hard to imagine though, like a team like the Knicks doing it again, just with how they've looked throughout the year. They haven't really shown any sort of promise, like in any of their matchups.
Well, but the Celtics are a team I think we could all very much see coming out and winning that tournament. And they're right now they're the 13th overall team.
You could see them winning or just doing well. I haven't seen them winning.
No, I could see them winning. I could see them winning because, as we know, tournament Celtics are a real thing. Tournament Celtics are very much a real thing.
It is real, but they've never won a tournament.
Yeah.
They've been to the finals 3 times. No one else can say that. You're going to get over the hump eventually.
76ers.
Right, true. All right. But in terms of their remaining schedule, and I'm just saying this to point out how complicated things become if a team wins, they have the Pacers, the Raptors, and the Warriors still left on their schedule going forward, right? And, yeah, also, like, the Lakers. But, whatever. So, if they conceivably finish, like, an 8-8 or a 7-9 even, or even a 9-7, those are not going to be probably good enough to get you in the playoffs, in the conventional fashion. So if they come out and lock up a playoff spot in the ticket, which, as we can agree, they're all very possible, they're all very capable of doing, then further wrench in the system. What if the Pacers, who are only 5-3, what if they drop their next 2 games, right? What if the Kings and the Warriors drop their next 2 games, right? There are 2 teams I am 100% confident will make the playoffs. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, to bring up the Pacers, I think that they're kind of flying under the radar as a team that is, I don't know if we want to say struggling, but I mean, I think that they have dropped. I don't know if they've lost.
They haven't been able to beat good teams, I don't think.
Well, they lost.
They haven't been
both
able to
games
beat good
last
teams.
week, and I think they lost. Oh no! So they ended up beating the Heat after they got killed by Kingsguard. So they've won 1 of their last 4 games, and they lost their first game at the turn tournament. So they've lost 4 of their last 5 games. So. Yeah, I don't know if that's cause for concern. They have lost to good teams, but they, losing 4 out of your last 5 is a pretty big deal in my opinion.
You got to beat good teams at some point if you want to make the playoffs, if you want to win a championship, which I'm assuming is the expectation for a team like the Pacers, who got Ramo in the offseason and has Wolf on their team. You're thinking championship. So you got to beat the good teams at some point.
Yeah.
And ever since week 1, when they absolutely obliterated the Jazz, their margins of victory have not been particularly high. They had 2 4-point wins, and they had a 7-point win over the Pistons. And you should probably beat the Pistons by more than 7. That game was probably a bit, probably not as close as the score indicated, but still, at some point, as Will said, you have to beat the best teams to be among the best.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is the Pacers have taken the Mavs spot as the you need to show me something team of the league.
Let's make it happen, yeah.
Well,
I think that's fair.
Yeah, and
that's fair.
I think it's bigger. Like when they played the Warriors, I noticed on stream, Keen or CB13 was, he looked at Wolf and said, "Hey man, you can't play all the defense." And I think, Pacers are known for, their defensive prowess, and that's their identity. But I think other teams are starting to figure out, hey, let's test other people on this defense who aren't Wolf and Ramo and see how they do. And it's, and the Pacers really haven't been able to answer that question yet. So I know a lot of blame gets put on Matty on the offensive end. But there's been worse point guards, man. There's been worse point guards. And I know it's easy to say, oh, the Pacers have the best defense, but they really couldn't stop B Smooth against Warriors Gaming, and I think it's deeper than just saying, oh, hey, it's all on Matty. Their defense is the best, so it has to be their point guard who can't score. I think they have deeper issues than that.
What?
They don't score a ton. They don't score a ton.
Let's
at all.
look at talking about Matty. Let's look at the top 10 teams. The general, thought is that if you want to succeed in 2K, you need a good point guard. I'm not saying Matty is a bad point guard, but if you compare Matty to the point guards of all the other top 10 teams in the league, he would rank probably at the bottom.
Yeah, but I
think
it's
Blazer 5, Matt.
I think it's more so how
bottom two.
I think it's more so how their team's set up, though. I think they have definitely the most ball dominant center in the league in Ramo, which isn't a bad thing. He can score if it's for a big man in this league, he can score. But I think I don't know. I think they put Matty on more of a leash, and that he's not really able to do as much as, say, as much as like Cavs Legion allows Strainer to do. So. I mean, yeah, I get it. Like, I'm not trying to say, like, oh, Matty is way better than what people think. I think that there's bigger issues, though, than just him. That, like, you don't lose 4 out of 5 just because your point guard is unbelievably terrible,
Well,
yeah, but at the same time, right? If they could change one thing, if they could have one player recapture his form from a previous game, that would be Matty scoring 30 points a game, right? And even if it's not going to be 30 points a game, but if they had, if they could change one thing, they would have him as, retaining or recapturing that level, and then they would be one of the best teams in the league, I think, without question.
Yeah.
Right? And that switch is not as easily flipped with any of their other 4 starters.
I agree. Like, so, yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is, like, Swizzer's defense isn't that good either. It's probably as bad as Matty's offense it has been for them, but yeah, I get what you're saying, though, too. If they did have a point guard like a BP or someone like that who could score 20, 30 points, yeah, that totally changes the dynamic of their team. But since they don't have that offensive identity and they count so much on their defensive identity, yet they still have players who aren't that great on the defensive end, that's what I'm saying. That it causes a little bit more concern for me than it just being an issue of Matty can't score.
Well.
Yeah.
Were you going to say something, Josiah?
Not in response to that, but I'm prepared to change topics.
Go ahead.
Again, the irony is that this team does not fall between 7 and 16, but the Cavs have won 4 straight. And
they have.
And Savage is, filling in very, very competently at point guard. But also they've won 4 straight, and they are very much back into the playoff picture after being just 3 and 5, and it's kind of remarkable.
Is it too much to say that the Lycopro suspension saved their season?
Was the Lycopro suspension, or was it acquiring All Hail Trey?
Well, that's part of it, but Lycopro just wasn't working.
Lycopro is definitely not working at point guard.
And it forced them to make the change. I think they stuck with Lycopro just a tad bit too long. And this kind of forced them to make that change.
Well, for me, I think it's more than one thing. Like I think Larry has been playing unbelievable at center, so his transition to that.
Yeah.
So losing Sick, who's a great center, you able to transition Larry to that position, and he's able to produce at Josiah's level. I think that's important. I think God of 2K is one of the best lockdowns in the league. I think he's establishing, a really good defensive player of the year campaign. But yeah, and then also adding Trey. I think this team knew they needed defense or needed offense. What you're losing with Sick was defense, but Larry's been able to step into that role just fine. So understanding that God of 2K and Larry can still provide that defense for you, go get that offense. And Trey's been that strainer. Strainer and Trey. Two of the better shooters or scoring shooters in the league, and it's proven vital for this team, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you have to give credit to the way this roster was constructed. I think it was clearly built with versatility in mind. Larry has played both the 4 and the 5. You can slot in Trey at the 3 or the 4. Strainer has gotten time in at point guard as well as small forward. And Savage, like we said, plugs in quite nicely into that point guard role. So even when they make a trade as drastic as shipping off Sick, who's a very good player, they still had the personnel to move some things around and not miss a beat.
Yeah, they got Strainer in the 3rd round. That remains some ridiculousness right there.
Yeah, that was a pretty big steal.
End of the 3rd round. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, in hindsight, pretty big steal.
And then Savage, back again in the 4th is very, very, very good. Last 2 rounds of the draft for the Cavs.
Yeah, so I mean, credit to them. We do need to wait though, because this has kind of been the Cavs' MO the entire season, where they lose 2. Then they win 2, then they lose 2, then they win 2. And now they've won 4, but I think they're still very liable to lose 2 if history repeats itself.
Yeah, and
they're very much not out of the woods.
Yeah,
they're only 7-5.
Absolutely not.
Like they're
Absolutely
winning
not.
some close games against some of the lower tier teams. Like they went to double overtime against the Knicks. They had as remarkable as it was, they were down 18 points with 3 minutes left against the Timberwolves. So I mean, they're not. They haven't. It's not like they're completely just turning it around and they're dominating everybody. They're going through some hard games, and they could. A lot of those games could have fell the other way. It's not to take away from their 4-game win streak. It's just to say that some of those shots don't fall. Some of those. Other teams don't fold in the last seconds, and they're easily 6-6 or 5-7. So but I mean, it is impressive.
Yeah.
All right. I want to talk about one more team in particular, and then also maybe one other team. But let's just do it. Let's bite the bullet. Let's talk about the only 5-5 team in the league. Milwaukee Bucks.
The Bucks.
Milwaukee Bucks Gaming. Throw out all your hot takes right here, right now. With the knowledge of what throwing out those hot takes will do to your future interview chances with the Bucks.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I don't think I have any hot takes for the Bucks, to be honest.
I'm not sure if it's a hot take to say. I mean, they're certainly not as bad as all of the preseason predictions were, including our own preseason predictions. They're certainly not the worst team in the league, but they were 4-1 to start the season. Was it 4-1?
4-2 maybe.
Am I 4-2? Yeah, and they. I don't know. Who'd they beat? They beat Blazer 5, which,
They beat the Warriors.
They beat the Warriors.
They beat the Warriors. They performed egregiously against the Mavs. That the game where they moved Chatty to point guard, and it did not go well.
Right. And
really did not go well.
They made the quarterfinals of the tip-off. They made the semis of the turn.
They
But
got
here they sit at
smoked by
5
the
and 5.
Wizards. They got smoked by the Wizards.
Was it the
scored 14
was it the
points in the
quarterfinals,
first
or they
half.
made the semifinals? I think of
Of
the.
what?
Of
Oh
the
no,
tip-off?
return.
No,
Sorry,
no,
sorry.
quarters. Yeah.
Yeah, I said
Oh,
turn they
sorry.
made the
That
semis.
wasn't. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know. It's hard to tell because like you can say so many things in their favor, and then
Are they going to make the
they've
playoffs?
had
That's the question.
um
Are they going? And here is their schedule. Think about this. I'm going to flip through their schedule a little bit. They play the Magic in Week 8, and the Magic have come on very very strong in the last. They play the Lakers and the Nets on in Week 9, which is an interesting combo. And I think any team that gets to play the Lakers at this point should be glad. They've got the Cavs and the Jazz as well in a 1 hour split, which is
that's gonna be tough.
That night will have a lot of playoff implications in Week 10 there, and then they've got the Knicks as well. Wow. All right, playoffs are looking good. Playoffs are looking good for the Bucks.
Okay, so like from a pure like numbers game where we're just talking about how many teams are like within shooting distance of the playoffs, from a pure numbers game, the chances aren't great.
Yeah.
Just because there's so much that can happen.
Yeah.
And you can say that about basically all the teams that are in the middle of these standings, right? Like the chances, I don't think any team has greater than a 50% chance out of all these to make the playoffs. So it's an uphill battle. Now, where they kind of rank among all these teams, that I'm not sure about at all.
Is RSG the answer at power forward?
No,
it's Big Meek.
I mean, I think he provides, a couple bailout buckets and things like that might be necessary down the line. I don't know if teams are becoming more accustomed how to defend this Bucks team now that they've seen how good A-Rooks is at scoring the ball. But I mean, hearing their schedule though, I mean, it is an optimistic schedule to be, to have. It seems like they're facing a lot of those middle tier teams we're talking about where, one win or one loss could swing things. Being able to avoid those top 3 of Blazer 5, Mavs, Warriors Gaming, or even Kingsguard, even Pacers, those top 5, being able to avoid those 5 teams in the second half of your schedule, I think you kind of have to look at that as a win. You just got a game plan for those other teams and just show a little bit more consistency. 5 and 5, obviously, it means you're winning as much as you're losing. So, I mean, just finding a way to string together quite a bit of wins.
One thing that I really think they have going in their favor is that A-Rooks is seemingly back to superstar status, in that he can really carry the team offensively.
They better hope for their sake.
Right. Yes, indeed. Especially against some of these teams who are lower in the standings. But yeah, they're going to need some ancillary scoring, that's for sure. But just the fact that they have a player or a scorer of A-Rooks' capabilities is a good point in their favor.
Another thing that this makes me want to point out as we talk about like how Chatty didn't do too well on point guard against Mavs Gaming, and that's kind of what they brought him in as. We were just speaking about how, what would Pacers be if they had a point guard who could score 20 points per game. When you look at the draft, it seems like after the lottery, really, like after like the 10th pick, like maybe 12th pick, you could say with Wavy. Which, I mean, it doesn't seem like there was a lot of point guard talent for these better teams who necessarily needed a point guard, like Heat Check Gaming, you could say Raptors Uprising in a sense, Bucks Gaming, where they waited to the later rounds to take a point guard. It'll be interesting thing to to keep an eye on going even into next season. These teams that need point guards, to see if maybe there will be more point guard talent to choose from. Just because it is kind of crazy to think that after the 12th pick, there really isn't an elite level point guard who was out there.
Yeah, you kind of need to get your point guards at the top of the draft, because after that it's not a sure thing. So yeah, that is a point. And the Bucks, they've kind of covered that up by running their offense mainly through A-Rooks. But when that isn't working, what do they turn to? And that may be one of the issues with this team.
You know who's looked really good in limited starts at point guard, who might have some Milwaukee connections and who is available. No, you're not going to guess. All right, Lav.
I don't know. Oh.
Lav.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and obviously he's had a very small sample size at point guard for the Nets, but that's one lineup change that you have to tip your hat to Kurt. Has really been very good for them. Switching Lav to point guard and Wavy to small forward. That's worked out.
That's
really
actually
well.
true. I
That's
forgot. I forgot he went third round. Yeah, that's actually true. Yeah,
he went third round.
Strainer and Lav.
All right, question. Yeah, question for the assembled that I just thought of. If you could pick one team, after that 7 to 16, cluster, if you could pick one team to win the ticket tournament from 17 to 21, T-Wolves, Wizards, Knicks, Lakers, Pistons, who would it be?
Yeah, T-Wolves for sure.
Has to be T-Wolves.
They have the...
There can't be any other answer. I refuse to buy into another Knicks gaming run in the ticket. I refuse to do it.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm selling all of that stock. I have no more stock in that.
I would say I'd be willing to say Knicks have the second best chance behind T-Wolves Gaming, just because I am so low on Wizards, Lakers, and Pistons. But yeah, I think all those are a pipe dream. I think T-Wolves are the only one where I could actually see doing it.
T-Wolves are the only team who have had any modicum of success in a tournament so far this season.
And they have players that you could see taking over games. Bear has shown he can play at a high level. Jay Money's had really good games. Feast has had really good games. Hell, JoJo and Turner.
Feast is just really good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they have a good roster. It's kind of been just like a season full of turmoil, but
they could really use a coach.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah.
Matt, and for the Wizards, the Wizards have been a really interesting team over the last few weeks. In speaking of players who could take over a game, all of a sudden Reese has transposed his scrimmage nature onto the stage, and all of a sudden he seems like he can score points almost at will.
After a very rough start to the season.
After possibly being one of the worst 5 starters in the league in the first half of the season, I will say that.
I wasn't going to say that. I was just going to say rough start.
I said it, but all of a sudden he is obviously nowhere near that conversation anymore because he's really turned it around, much to his credit. But man, they need more out of JT, and JT knows that, so JT is not going to mind me saying it. They need more out of JT.
So this is where...
That's been such a struggle. This is
where it's become this is one of the more topics that's become increasingly annoying to me. It seems like everyone's trying to walk on eggshells around JT. Like, oh, I don't want to say JT, but JT has been the worst point guard in the league. He's been worse than Kuda. He's been worse than Matty. He's averaging 7 points per game.
Worse than...
He's averaging 7... Yes, he is. He's averaging 7 points per game. He's the only point guard to average 7 points. He's averaging less than Control. He's averaging 7 points per game, 4 assists per game, less than Control in both statistical categories. I was looking it up yesterday. I was watching them play. Who were they playing? Celtics crossover, and they needed a bucket late in the game. And he was guarded by Profusion, a small forward sharp. How do you not consider that a mismatch? He attacks him the first play, misses or takes some crazy mid-range jumper. Attacks the second one and turns over the ball, and then is scared to attack the last one. He tried it 3 times in the last minute. I think I don't know what it is. Like, this guy was their first round pick last year, number 12 overall. They retained him this year. All these other point guards we're saying are struggling were like either late round picks or, questionable picks in the expansion draft. But this is a guy who was supposed to be the franchise player, and he's not it at all. And it seems like everyone's just trying to walk on eggshells around it because they don't either want to hurt his feelings or what. But we're willing to talk about these other point guards that they need to step up and play better when he's been the worst. So it's just become increasingly annoying to me.
I'm gonna address that, but I just want to compare his stats with Control's. JT is averaging. We're only talking regular season here. 7.1 points, 4 assists, 2.8 turnovers on 36% from the field and 40% from three. Control is not averaging that. Control has 4.4 assists per game, 4.3 turnovers per game, shooting 32% from the field, 14%, if I recall correctly, from three on 7.3 points per game. And both aren't.
So he's more efficient.
Both aren't exciting.
So he's more efficient, but also Control's regular season statistics are skewed because he played lockdown for a little while too. But yeah, I mean, so we're comparing him to Control. Still, though, this is a first round, and granted, Control was a first round pick last year as well. But I feel like Control gets a lot of scrutiny, whereas JT gets none. No, maybe everyone's like, okay.
I won't say none.
It's pretty, rare.
JT's been terrible.
Yeah,
he's been terrible. Yeah.
If any other player that I feel like
it's really bad.
Yeah, I just want that to be known. He's been really, really bad, and I don't think people are saying it to that extent that he's been really, really bad. And this Wizard team would be better if he was playing at an even average level. He's playing below par.
I think JT kind of knows that though.
Yeah.
Which is self-admonition is a good way to take rare and a good way to take away criticism.
Yeah,
rare in this community.
Exceedingly rare.
Yeah. So
yeah,
we appreciate JT in that respect very much. It sounded like you had something else, Josiah.
No, it's just a tough season for the Wizards. Due to preseason circumstances. They still pulled off a great trade by dealing the 14th pick for Dayfry. I think that'll come to fruition further down the road because Dayfry's not going anywhere anytime soon. He's going to be with the Wizards for a long time. But just could compare that to dealing the number 10 pick for Vert.
Yeah, that did not turn out too hot for the Lakers.
Yeah. And the Lakers, by the way, got a great second-round pick in Kev, which doesn't get talked about enough because they've just been so bad as a team. And Kev has had struggles himself. But as far as second-round picks go, that was a really good one.
Well, I mean, teams have keyed in that, you shut down Kev, right. Then the Lakers have no chance. Right?
Yeah.
And
I was going to say, I think, but the Lakers aren't far off, in my opinion. They're really bad this year, but if they,
they have pieces.
Yeah, they got and they know they can bring in someone who is knowledgeable of this game and this community and its players. They could bring back good players that they currently have on their team and fix some of the mistakes that they made this year and really be a contending team next year, like we saw a lot of teams from last year do this year.
Yeah, they could really benefit from a 2K coach. They've tried to integrate some horns and some post-scoring sets, but without having a coach and without having those fully worked through, those sets just haven't worked. And the imagination is there, which is good. And having a change of pace is always going to help your offense, but they just haven't been able to implement the sort of things they've wanted to implement with any consistency, with any efficiency. So getting a 2K coach will really help them next year, as well as just building. And they're an expansion team, right? So they tried to swing for the fences a little bit by going out and getting Vert, and they really tried to go experience heavy in the draft, thinking that might ease the pains of being an expansion team. But obviously this is much more along the narrative of a classic expansion team, where you have to struggle a little bit at
You're
first.
being nice. You're being
you have
nice.
to struggle.
I mean, Vert's game just kind of didn't fit this meta when they already had Moody at center. He didn't. I mean, they've tried Vert on the post scoring build at power forward, right? Yeah,
and it didn't work.
So, yeah,
which is no fault of Vert's necessarily, right? That just they had him sitting in the corner a lot. You know, when they did get the ball to him at the post, they're just trying to let him go to work.
The Hawks have learned to maximize the post scoring build. The Lakers haven't.
Well, there's a huge difference in skill. Yeah.
Shots is very good.
Shots is extremely good. Yeah. Probably not as good as Len thought he was last year, but still extremely good. And in the MVP conversation. Shots is in the MVP conversation.
Exactly what I thought he was.
We are not going to discuss Len's take on the Season 1 Blazers 5.
Has an extremely hot take that we will not get into.
It will never, ever, ever be recorded on this podcast.
No, it does not. It is not worthy.
To not lose track, though, I just want to bring up that I don't think I don't think getting Vert was a necessarily bad decision. I think the way they went about it, giving up such a high pick to get him, is where it looks like a mistake. But I think he's still a complimentary piece. I think he, if they are able to bring back 3 players next year, I think he is one of the players they should bring back. But giving up the 10th pick, knowing that you could have got a point guard at that pick and not having a point guard currently, it does look worse. But yeah, I mean, so I think that's what makes it look a little bit more confusing as to how they got him.
I think this season has shown that you don't have to rebuild, right? You can have one bad season and then you can go right back to the top the next season. Look at Mavs Gaming right now, 10-1. Warriors Gaming 7-4. Kings Guard 7-4. Pacers Gaming 5-3. You get a high pick, the Lakers are going to get a very high pick.
Very high pick.
Assuming the lottery doesn't absolutely obliterate their entire franchise, they're going to get a high pick and they're going to have their pick of a point guard. And so you bring back 2. I think they should bring back Kev and Moody. If they are allowed to bring back 3, you add Invert there, and you have some pieces to work with along with a point guard who should come in and do very well and be able to run an offense. So all hope is not lost. And you can say the same about any of these teams in the bottom, like, Pistons GT or the Wizards. So
who do the Pistons bring back?
May,
May, and then throw the rest in a hat.
Let's not go down that road.
I think they bring back May, Insanity, and Dev Goss.
Insanity is probably coming back.
Yeah.
Does Insanity want to be back?
That's. I don't know.
Anyways, the Heat will pat himself on the back, but the Heat aren't looking too hot right now. They're 4-5. They're in 16th. Tied
1-3 since the Hood trade.
1-3 since the Hood trade. They're on a bye. They were on a bye. They need to turn things around.
Who do they play this week?
That's a good question.
The Magic and the Jazz.
Oh, well.
Those are 2 big games.
Big games right there.
I want to say these are kind of like must-win games.
It's safe to say if they go 0-2, then I think they're out of the playoffs.
I agree. I think 7 losses is not comfortable because they also have the Nets later on, right? And also these 2 games help determine their seeding for the ticket, right? And you don't want to be going up against, say, the Blazers. Obviously, the Blazers lost, in the first round, but at the same time, I don't think you want to be going up against the Blazers.
Well, you'd also be giving wins to 2 teams that are in the cluster.
Yeah.
So, I'm not quite sure what the minimum record you need to be in the playoffs is. I think 10-6 is probably what you want to shoot for. 9 and 7 is when it gets dicey.
Very dangerous there.
So if they go 4 and 7, they have to win out and hope a lot of things go in their favor.
The Heat have so many games remaining against teams right in that cluster. Raptors and Hawks, 2 more.
Very big.
You have to come out and show why you were the finalists last year.
Yeah. Well, no comment.
Who, the Knicks?
The Heat. The
No,
Knicks.
both
The
of them.
Knicks.
No,
The
I
Knicks.
know. It was a joke. It was a joke to say both finalists are like, oh, this league is crazy, man.
It is.
Both finalists are not in the top 15 of the standings. That's wild.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, there's things, everything can change in just one off season. There's no such thing as a rebuild in this league, I don't think, with the amount of talent. Well, right now, as you know, things expand and the talent doesn't become so concentrated. Maybe that'll change, but things change.
The big question is, how many players do teams get to protect? Is it 2 or is it 3?
Yes.
That's
gonna be
foundational question for the league next year.
That will change everything this offseason.
One more thing I want to say about both of these teams that were finalists last year was I think that they're kind of cursed. I mean, obviously, you would want to have a successful season. Like, obviously, the Knicks won season 1. Heat Check made it to the finals. But I think they both were kind of cursed this season by how the results played out last season. Like, the Knicks, had they not won the championship, they do not bring back Idris. They do not bring back Ye. Or maybe they bring back Idris, but they don't bring back Ye.
Yeah.
And, since they win the championship, they see he's like a vital piece. He hits some big shots, so they bring him back. And now they're kind of like, they don't even use him. He's their 6th man now. Haza has been like a bright spot for them. So I think they kind of, even though they won the championship, I think that they're kind of feeling the effects of, winning a championship and being nice and bringing back everyone who won you that championship. But then also with Heat Check where, they really benefited from that patch. And I know we keep bringing it up, but they really benefited from it. And they kind of felt like, they had all these versatile players that didn't, that they didn't necessarily need to get a point guard. Jay Money ended up falling to them and they felt satisfied with that. He ended up not panning out. They thought they were getting value in Hood. He's looking like he's not panning out. So it's just looking like that they're kind of, feeling the effects of their success last year, finding that exploit in the new patch. Whereas now it's looking like, okay, you've never had a point guard. Now when you need one more than ever, it's really showing.
But at the same time, if you're the Knicks, you take it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah. You take the championship every single time.
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, you'd want that, but it's just showing the effects of winning that championship that it's like, okay, you brought back Ye, who's not going to be retained at all.
The funny thing for me with the Knicks is that I think in, 3 out of my 5 mock drafts or whatever, I had them taking Seam at the end of the first round.
That would have been pretty good.
That would have been pretty good for them. That's not to say that Malik is a bad player, but Malik is not a good defender. He's a very high volume scorer, and he hasn't been particularly efficient. But Seam is kind of showing out in Sacramento.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say Seam is better right now. Yeah, for sure. Seam is probably, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I would, like, first thought he's the best sharp. I mean, well, no, you have A Rooks and Beast Move, but Seam's up there, man. He's definitely like top 3, top 5.
Hindsight is 2020.
Right. Yeah, that's a lot of what we discuss comes down to. But anything else we want to talk about?
No, I think we've kind of went through all of.
I'm pretty talked
cool
out.
Points.
The Timberwolves blew a massive lead.
Yes, they did.
Massive lead.
Yes,
but we're not going to talk about that.
There's not much to
you
talk
can't
about.
Talk about
you blew
that.
an 18-point lead in the fourth quarter.
The only talking about that
happens.
Needs to happen should be done in the Timberwolves locker room, as it were.
Yes.
That is.
I'm sure
that is cause for a players only meeting. But then again, the problem is that maybe the majority of their season over the last couple of weeks has been players only meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there, this is when I got to experience, seeing them in person, and it was during the time where Hood put in his trade requests and stuff. I thought that they would be more one of the, less compatible teams, when in fact they look like they had the best chemistry. So I'm sure that they have like an open book, and they're really trying to figure out what went wrong and what they need to fix in the future so that never happens again.
Yeah. But that
just slow the ball down, dude. Just slow the ball down, man.
It killed their season. It killed their season. Yeah. So there's.
But the ticket.
The ticket. If I don't know, man. If the Knicks win the ticket again, I think we need to rethink this whole automatic playoff berth thing.
Yeah.
I really do.
The ticket sponsored by Knicks Gaming.
It worked out last season, but
I think the unfortunate part is that it's like one tournament. So like, say for instance, 76ers won a tournament, Warriors Gaming won a tournament, and the benefit of it, obviously cash prize was nice, but and then all of a sudden there's one tournament that necessarily you didn't do too well. And as we see in this league, there's a lot of inconsistency. It's a lot about going on runs, going on win streaks, and figuring out when to adapt. It kind of sucks that it's just like one tournament to say, okay, this is the exact tournament. We get to decide who goes to the playoffs.
That's what makes it exciting, though.
Yeah.
That's why they do it.
Yeah, that's what they were going for.
Yeah.
So, I think that's it then for today. We kind of just jumped. We didn't plan most of that discussion, to be honest. We just kind of jumped from topic to topic. But Josiah, where can the people find you in all of your wonderful content?
You can find me stealing motivational tweets at Josiah Cohen 13. Bit sarcastic there. You can find me writing mostly on Dimer2K.com.
Len?
Yeah, you could find me talking about how Shots should be MVP, and how great of a player he is.
Yes, but no.
That's a take.
No, definitely Mama, but no, Shots has been great.
You have a profile you just wrote.
Yeah,
Shots. You did a Q&A.
I wrote a profile, but that's on Dimer2K. So
that's Dimer2K.com. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Dimer2K.com. You could find the profile, and I'll have some. We're getting to mid-season here too, so I've been writing up some stuff in regards to that. So you'll find some of that stuff coming up in the coming weeks on Dimer2K.com. But anything else, you can find me at Len_2K on Twitter.
We have some insane content coming this week. It was really good.
Yeah, we got some stuff in the works. For sure. You can find me on Twitter at Will Beverina. That's BEVERINA. Follow Dimer at Dimer2K. But if you're listening to this podcast and you don't follow Dimer, then what are you doing? Dimer2K.com for lots of NBA 2K League content, news, analysis, profiles, and the like. So thanks for listening, everybody. Whether you listen to just a little bit or the entire thing, we always appreciate the support, and hopefully we'll see you next week, barring any more stupid work stuff coming up for me. So see you then, and thanks for listening.